At my wedding, my in-laws mocked my mother in front of 204 people. It sounds like a sensational headline, the kind of thing you'd expect to see in one of those online confession threads, but when I tell you that it happened to me, I mean it in the most gutting, unforgettable way. Even now, over a year later, I can still feel my stomach twist when I think about that night, about how something meant to be the happiest day of my life turned into a memory that still makes me ache. I grew up with just my mother. My father wasn't absent, exactly, but he was inconsistent. He floated in and out, promising more than he ever delivered. So, in practice, it was always just the two of us. My mother worked 2 jobs for years so I could go to a decent school. She was the kind of woman who made every penny stretch, who mended my clothes until I begged her to stop, who would stay up until 2 in the morning helping me study even when her eyes kept fluttering shut. She wasn't glamorous or polished. She didn't own fancy dresses or get her nails done or have the easy, practiced charm that some people carry like a second skin. But she was good, she was kind, and she was mine. When I met Adam, my now husband, one of the first things that drew me to him was how different his family seemed from mine. They were polished, wealthy, comfortable in rooms that had always made me feel small. His mother hosted dinners where the napkins matched the centerpiece and the wine was older than me. His father had the kind of booming laugh that made people gather around, waiting for his stories. And his sisters looked like they had stepped out of glossy magazines, every strand of hair in place, their clothes impeccable, their smiles rehearsed. At first, I was dazzled. They seemed like something out of a movie. But as time went on, I started to notice the little digs. The comments about where I was from. The questions about what exactly my mother did, said in a way that made it clear they weren't impressed by her cleaning job at the elementary school or the side gigs she did baking for neighbors. I brushed it off. Adam told me not to worry, that they didn't mean anything by it. He told me that families just had different ways of showing curiosity, that I was being sensitive. I wanted to believe him. I loved him, and I wanted to believe that marrying him wouldn't mean marrying into a family that would look down on me forever. The wedding planning itself was fraught. His mother insisted on things that I didn't care about: gold-plated silverware, imported roses, a guest list so bloated that I barely knew half the names. I pushed back when I could, but she always found a way to make me feel like I was ungrateful, like I should just be thankful they were footing the bill. My mother offered to contribute, but I couldn't stomach the idea of her dipping into her modest savings just to compete with the extravagance of the Hamiltons. So I told her to save her money and just focus on being there. That was all I wanted, for her to sit in the front row, proud, finally able to see her only daughter celebrated. The day of the wedding was beautiful in that picture-perfect way. The sky was cloudless, the grass at the vineyard so green it looked like it had been painted on. I remember standing in the bridal suite, my dress heavy on my shoulders, and thinking, this is it. Everything has led here. My mother came in just before the ceremony. She was wearing a pale blue dress she'd bought secondhand and altered herself. Her hands shook as she adjusted my veil, and when I turned to look at her, her eyes were wet. "You look like an angel," she whispered. And for a moment, all the noise faded. The ceremony itself went smoothly. I walked down the aisle, my mother clutching her tissue, and Adam beamed at me like I was the only person in the universe. When we said our vows, I thought, this is the happiest I've ever been. But then came the reception. The vineyard's great hall glittered with fairy lights and crystal chandeliers. Music floated through the air, glasses clinked, and people laughed over plates of filet mignon and scallops. I was making my rounds, hugging relatives, thanking coworkers, when I noticed a cluster of people near the head table. My in-laws. They were laughing in that sharp, cutting way that made the hair on my neck rise. I saw my mother standing near them, her face tight, her hands clutching her purse strap. I hurried over, my heart hammering, but before I could say anything, I heard it. Adam's sister, perfect hair, perfect smile, was mimicking my mother's voice. "Oh, honey, I just shop at the thrift store. It's good enough for us." She scrunched her face, mocking the way my mother's teeth weren't perfectly straight. Laughter rippled through the group. My mother stood there, red blooming across her cheeks, her lips pressed so tight they nearly disappeared. Then his father chimed in. "Did you see her shoes? I swear, they're from 1995. She probably pulled them out of a bargain bin." More laughter. And then, the final blow, from his mother. She leaned in, stage whispered, "Can you imagine what the photos will look like with her in the front row? Maybe we should ask the photographer to crop her out. Wouldn't want to ruin the aesthetic." The laughter exploded. All around them, people were watching, guests from both sides, some horrified, some awkwardly chuckling, unsure what to do. 204 people, and my mother was being mocked like she was the punchline of some cruel joke. Something in me snapped. I walked straight into the circle, my heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. "Enough." My voice shook, but it carried. The laughter died instantly. My mother looked at me, her eyes glassy, her chest rising and falling like she was holding her breath. "How dare you?" I said, my gaze sweeping over each of them. "Do you have any idea what she's sacrificed for me to even stand here today? Do you have any clue what she's given up, what she's endured, so that I could have a life better than hers?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "You sit here in your designer clothes, sipping your overpriced wine, and you think you're better than her because she doesn't look like you. Because she doesn't speak like you. She has more dignity, more strength, and more kindness in her little finger than all of you combined." The room was silent, dead silent. My mother tugged at my arm, whispering, "Please, don't," but I shook my head. I wasn't going to let it slide. Not this time. I turned to Adam, who had finally made his way over, his face pale. "And you," I said, my voice dropping. "You told me they didn't mean anything by it. That I was being sensitive. Well, look around. This is who they are. This is what you asked me to marry into." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes darted between me, his family, and the sea of guests who were now whispering behind their hands. I grabbed my mother's hand. "Come on," I said. "We're leaving." I could feel the weight of every gaze on me as we walked out of that glittering hall, my dress dragging across the floor, my mother's shoulders trembling beneath her borrowed shawl. Behind us, I heard murmurs, some sympathetic, some judgmental, but I didn't look back. Outside, the night air was cool against my burning skin. My mother tried to apologize, as if she had somehow caused it, but I stopped her. "You have nothing to be sorry for," I said fiercely. "Nothing. They should be begging you for forgiveness, not the other way around." We stood there in the parking lot, the sounds of the party muffled behind the walls, and for a long moment, I wondered if I had just ruined everything: my marriage, my reputation, the carefully built facade of a perfect wedding. But then my mother smiled at me through her tears, small and tired but real. "You chose me," she said softly. "For once, someone chose me." And in that moment, I knew I hadn't ruined anything that mattered. The aftermath was messy, of course. Adam came to me the next morning, looking hollow, saying he was sorry, that he hadn't known his family would go that far. He begged me not to throw away our marriage because of them. I told him plainly that if he wanted this to work, he needed to stand with me, not them. That meant setting boundaries, cutting through the toxicity, and protecting my mother from ever being humiliated like that again. It wasn't easy. His family tried to spin the story, claiming they were just joking, that I had overreacted, that people were too sensitive these days. But the truth was, 204 people had seen it. 204 witnesses to their cruelty. And though some might have laughed along, plenty didn't. Word spread. The polished Hamilton reputation began to tarnish, not mine. As for me and Adam, we're still together, though not without scars. He's been working, really working, to undo the blind loyalty he had to his family. He cut ties with them for a while, and though contact has resumed in small, careful doses, I made it clear, one wrong move toward my mother, and they're gone again. No compromises. My mother still flinches when the subject of the wedding comes up. She doesn't like to talk about it. But sometimes I catch her looking at me with this strange mix of sorrow and pride, like she can't quite believe I stood up for her the way I did. And I tell her, again and again, that I would do it 1,000 times over. Because here's the thing, weddings are supposed to be about love. About choosing someone to stand beside you, no matter what. And that night, under the chandeliers and fairy lights, I realized something. Love isn't just about the vows you say to your partner. It's also about the loyalty you show to the people who shaped you, who raised you, who stood by you long before rings and dresses and guest lists. At my wedding, my in-laws mocked my mother in front of 204 people. But I will never let that be the whole story. The real story is this. They tried to humiliate her, and instead, they revealed themselves. They tried to make her small, and instead, they made me loud. And in the end, they gave me a gift they never intended. They showed me exactly where my loyalty lies. With her. Always with her.